Hello, everyone. My name is Rick Weldon. I'm the president and CEO of the Frederick County Chamber of Commerce. The best part of my job as Chamber CEO is to meet with all of our members and chat about your work and your family and your business priorities. But since our current situation denies us that chance, we thought we'd try to develop a new way to chat with you. We have some really amazing members, people with expertise and knowledge on a wide range of topics that we think are important to hear, especially right now. We're going to use these chamber conversations as a way to stay connected, to stay informed, and honestly, the biggest reason, just to allow us to share our thoughts with each other. I'd like to introduce our first guest for our first chamber conversation, and that's my good friend Shabri Moore of Moore Wealth. After a successful career in the life sciences industry, Shabri has built an incredibly successful wealth management advisory firm. Moore Wealth's clients include sole proprietors, small business owners, and companies with hundreds of employees. These companies are very diverse, and they include minority-owned and disadvantaged businesses, professional services, healthcare, allied health concerns, and even government contractors. Shabri isn't just a dedicated and focused financial expert, although she is that, she's also heavily involved in this community. She's a committed volunteer, having served on the Chamber Board of Directors, the Women's Giving Circle, the Community Foundation, the Rotary Club of Frederick, and as one of the first board members of the Frederick Innovative Technology Center Incorporated, FITCI. So you can see, she knows her business, she knows our community, and she has a heart to serve. And we're thrilled and honored to have Shabri join us on our first ever chamber conversation. So Shabri, I'd like to start by asking some questions if I could. And these questions all kind of relate to the environment we're in right now. We'll continue to do these chamber conversations, and I'm hoping you'll agree to come back at a point in time in the future where we can talk about something that doesn't have anything to do with COVID-19 or the SBA or economic injury disaster loans, but let's start with that. So what kind of relief generally is available for small businesses through the Small Business Administration and through the Federal CARES Act?
Yeah. Hi, Rick. Thank you so much for putting this together. The Chamber and you have provided such great leadership to our community, so I'm thrilled to be a part of this podcast, if you will, that we're doing. So, our business community is really vibrant in Frederick, and it's a wonderful place to be. But right now, a lot of businesses are struggling. So this is very appropriate that you're hosting something like this now. So to your question, the kinds of relief that are available for small businesses through the SBA and the CARES Act are really twofold. First, the CARES Act created the two programs, the first one being the Paycheck Protection Program, or PPP. And then they also created the Economic Injury Disaster Loan, or EIDL. Now, the Act appropriated about $360 billion to be administrated to these two programs. And it looks like there's going to be another $250 billion that will be allocated as well. So the difference between the two. The PPP programs, or the Paycheck Protection Program, this was really intended to help businesses cover their everyday types of expenses. So payroll, rents, any cost associated with that, mortgage interest, and so forth. And this was really for that period between February 15th and June 30th. The EIDL loans are the ones through the Small Business Administration. These are usually used when there's been a declared disaster, and COVID-19 is certainly a declared disaster. So the initial understanding was that if you applied for one of these, and it was a simple process, you applied online, that you would immediately get a $10,000 loan. The reality of it has been that it didn't happen quite that quickly. Everyone's working as fast as they can, the government, bankers, you name it. However, there's always going to be little glitches in here. Those loans are going to be available. It's just not going to be as quick as we initially thought.
Yeah, and I think that fuels a lot of the fear and uncertainty and confusion. They hear national cable news talk about dates of availability, when you can file. But the fact is, this this is an undertaking on the scale of World War II in terms of the mobilization of resources, and God love them, those politicians in Washington wanted to do something.
Yes.
Unfortunately, they didn't really understand how the something was going to translate to our local lenders who have to take these, at least the PPP loans in. So who is eligible for a Paycheck Protection Program funding opportunity?
Okay, yeah. So the CARES Act provides a really broad definition of a small business. So this includes any business that operates with 500 or fewer employees, or maybe a set size standard set by the industry. Interestingly, a lot of people thought that sole proprietors and independent contractors would not be eligible. However, they are. So if you're a sole proprietor, an independent contractor, you're self-employed, even gig economy employees are all eligible for these types of loans.
So I never really understood, and we ended up, you know, beyond my knowledge, having literally dozens, multiple dozens of companies that are defined in terms of a gig economy. We have a DJ, Elon Eisenberg, Double E Entertainment. Elon's company works in the gig economy. He has independent contractor DJs that he hires out to cover the business landscape for him. And literally, again, dozens, multiple dozens of these companies. And typically these federal loans and even SBA disaster loans were closed off to people who paid, non-traditional employer-employee relationships or sole proprietors, or so that's
Yeah.
added, I think, to the confusion associated with these programs, is opening them up.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you bring up a great point, Rick. A lot of times people feel that if they are a sole proprietor or a 1099 employee, they're not eligible. In this situation, they are all eligible. So in the case of someone who has a business where they're a sole proprietor, but they have 1099 employees, the way they work with this is their 1099 employees would then apply for their own loan, and the sole proprietor applies for their loan. So
Right,
again, everyone is eligible.
right. Um, Typically, applying for an SBA loan is an incredibly complicated process, right?
Correct.
There's a lot you need. There's a lot you have to prove. Can you kind of generally describe how this maybe is different in this context?
Right. And again, a great question. An SBA loan, as you mentioned, is typically very intensive in terms of collecting paperwork and so forth. Because this is a disaster loan, some of that has been simplified. Probably your best friend right now is your banker. And that person is going to give you a list of different types of documentation that you're going to need. The loan process itself has been simplified. The application is considerably shorter than it has ever been. The type of documents that you're going to need for it have been reduced. Now, let's kind of clarify for a minute. With that EIDL loan, a portion of that is an emergency loan. For that, it's more just a good faith promise on the part of that small business owner to say, I need this and I need it immediately. So that's literally about a page and a half in terms of documentation that you need, and nothing like tax returns or all of that. Now, for the bigger loan, yes, you will need some tax documents. You may need a profit and loss statement. It's a little bit more involved. However, it still has been streamlined tremendously.
For the EIDL, does a business apply directly through the SBA and the PPP through an authorized lender, or do both require the intervention of a banker?
Both require the intervention of the banker. So you're going to need the banker. Now, I'll go back and clarify that in a minute. You are going to need the banker to help you through the majority of this. That emergency $10,000 loan, that's when you can do online on your own. And I would encourage you to do that immediately. I do want to clarify that. Initially, when this was first put out, it made it seem as if you applied for that loan, you were granted that immediately. And you would get it within 3 days, you would get $10,000. There's been some clarification now, and it looks like it will be about $1,000 per employee, and it could take several weeks to get that loan. That turnaround is not quite as quick as I know the people who were really trying to get the money out hoped it would be.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. This thing has an element that I've never seen even with economic injury disaster loans from hurricanes and tornadoes, and that's a forgivability component. Could you talk about that?
Yes, of course. So the PPP loans are 100% forgivable. Now, in order for that to happen, you have to follow the rules of where the money can be used. So going back to the things we discussed to cover payroll, to cover mortgages and so forth. The one caveat with this is that at least 75% of the amount of the loan has to go towards paying for payroll cost. Because remember, the reason these loans were put into place was one, to keep the small business owner afloat, but also to allow them to keep their employees on staff. So that was the big impetus behind all of this.
So let's say I'm a small business owner and I have multiple channels, multiple
Mhm.
businesses that um, I've got under my control. Am I restricted to one of these or one or the other of these loan programs, or can my businesses be viewed based on what they are and apply multiple opportunities?
Right. As long as you have separate businesses, yes, they are considered multiple entities and they must have separate EIN numbers. Some people operate under, for example, a sole proprietor may only operate under their own social security number. You can't have multiple businesses under the same social security number or the same tax ID number. But if they have different numbers, absolutely, they each qualify on their own.
So let's say I'm a business. I haven't really suffered my loss yet, but I've forecast the next couple payrolls and I know where I'm going to be. And to be proactive, I've reduced my workforce either through furlough or layoff.
Mhm.
Does that, would that person in that predicament qualify, and are they able to apply for, hopefully bring all or most of that workforce back and have those loan obligations forgiven?
Yes. So, in fact, if you are in a situation where you say, one, I'm okay right now. So perhaps I shouldn't apply for it and leave the money for someone else who needs it. But I know that I'm probably not going to be okay if we forecast this out a bit. I would say definitely apply for the loan. If you are someone who is actually furloughed or let go employees, you are still eligible. You just need to bring them back on board and make sure that you're covering their salaries. Because again, remember, the main impetus is we want to keep people employed.
Yeah. So when you look out there, and we've all heard rumors that some banks were better prepared for this. Some were working with depository clients to get their loan paperwork filled out last Friday when the system opened up, or over the weekend, and some said, well, wait till Monday or wait till Wednesday. Isn't
Mhm.
the best advice really to talk to your lender, to the business banker that you have that relationship with, because
Mhm.
frankly, they understand your cycles better than anybody else. Um, is that the advice? Contact your banker right away.
Absolutely. So, if you think about it, that relationship that you have with your banker should be a very strong one. And to your point, most banks are servicing their clients first. So, if you have a loan with that bank, if you have depository accounts with that bank, they are more likely to work with you immediately. Newer clients are going to be put in the queue, but they're going to be behind all the current clients. And because so many people are applying for these loans, these bankers are absolutely inundated. I'll tell you, Rick, just in talking to the different bankers, just in the area, as well as through Baltimore and well into Montgomery County into DC, these guys are working pretty much all 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, trying to get everything put together for their clients and truly trying to help them. But it's that relationship. And if you think about what Frederick is all about and what the chamber has done for Frederick, is to really make us very connected with each other. And that includes really having that strong relationship with your banker.
So that's one of those things that I guess we're going to learn a lot through this, right? We're going to lose a lot,
Absolutely.
but we're going to learn a lot. And one of the key takeaways for me has been the power of pre-existing relationships, right? So
Absolutely.
looking at you on screen, I'm reminded of the importance of have a trusted financial advisor, the person that can kind of take you by the hand, put their arm around your shoulder, and lead you through uncertain times. And the same is true with a banking relationship.
Absolutely.
It's not just a place where you deposit the money that you make from the services that you provide. It's also the home of your payroll and the
Right.
home of your AR and AP. And so to have more than just know all the tellers on the teller line. You really do. If you haven't had it before COVID-19, every small business really ought to find, and every bank has multiple, business bankers, relationship bankers. Make that social connection. Go to Cafe Nola with them or Starbucks and
Mhm.
talk about not just how we're getting through this, but what are your hopes and dreams and aspirations, and how does that impact your banking relationship? Those businesses who have done that, they were the ones that were able to make that call over the weekend or on
Absolutely.
Monday, and be told exactly what they need to bring in when they can come in, or what they need to submit via secure email link. So those trusted relationships, and yeah, it's a lesson I guess I've learned a long time ago here at the Chamber, is that's
Yeah,
essential all the time, but critically important in times like this.
absolutely. Absolutely.
So people are applying like crazy. I
Mhm.
think I've worked on up to 130 members that have applied for some level of assistance, either local. The city had a great little program they were running. They're
Yeah.
trying to refill it through the community foundation. But the state had some great programs that unfortunately were, oversubscribed and underfunded based on the demand. And the same will be true, I think, with the federal program. But how does one know if their application got processed, is accepted? How are they going to find out? That kind of thing. Any advice for folks?
There are phone numbers you can call. However, I'll be honest with you, they are so inundated with calls that you'll never get through. You will get an email letting you know if you have actually been accepted and the loan is going to be processed. They may ask for a few pieces of additional information, but our understanding in talking to basically our clients and colleagues is that people are starting to get emails confirming that their applications have been approved and things will start moving forward. Last week we were hearing virtually nothing in terms of approvals, which was very disconcerting. But over the weekend, we started getting messages from people saying, yes, I did indeed get approved, and here are the few things that I'm going to need to submit in order to move forward. So the process is beginning to
Hope
work.
you're,
We just all
yeah.
need to be patient and understand everyone's trying to do their very best with this.
Yeah, and I think so. That's been if there's an emotional component to this, it's that
Mhm.
I think from the president and the Congress to the State Department of Commerce to our county and city government and to our bankers and financial institutions. I think everybody's just trying to do their best in a terribly complicated environment. So I agree with you. I think right now patience, and while it's difficult to be patient when you're sweating how you're going to cover that payroll or keep those critically important workers on your payroll, it's a hard ask, but I think it's equally important. So, is there anything else that you wanted to share? Or
I think that our community is so strong. I mean, Rick, I love Frederick. I love the business community here. And I think that if we each reach out to help each other in any way that we possibly can, that we'll all make it through this and we'll be stronger for it. So, we'd just like to offer anything we can in the way of help. We're available. We have been working pretty much every single day trying to help our clients, and anyone who has said, just pick up the phone, call us. We're happy to help in any way we can. And thank you so much for taking the lead on this. I think it's critical, and stay well, everyone.
yeah, so just so everybody that watches this knows why my heart is so full when it comes to more wealth. I'm going to go back to the Pride Festival last year. And for the first time in its multi-year history, the Chamber of Commerce Board of Directors was there to be part of the welcoming ceremony for the Pride Festival along Carroll Creek. When I stood there and read our little proclamation of welcome and looked out at the thousands of people that were gathered, and then looked up and down the creek and saw businesses who had rented a space during the Pride Festival to interact with the people that had come to Frederick to celebrate, I was just filled with pride as I counted 14 members of my chamber that were there. And so then Amy and I took a walk up and down the creek, and we stopped at the More Wealth booth. And after Eric and Sean put a feather boa around Amy and I to pose for a picture, I turned to Eric and I said, "Can I ask you a question?" We were the only people in the booth. I said, "Why are you doing this?" And Eric looked me in the eyes and he shared your value with me. And he said, because every single person on this creek today is a prospective customer of More Wealth. And why would we look at this any other way? Well, that told me all I needed to know about the value of Shabri Moore, her two wonderful sons, and More Wealth as a company. So that's why we ask you to help us with our first conversation. And I think for those of you watching, you can see why we thought we should begin our conversation on this topic and with Shabri as our inaugural guest. Shabri, I can't thank you enough for your time, your wisdom, and your insight. Folks are justifiably anxious about our artificially depressed economy. So just knowing that we have folks like you out there willing and able to help is a real serious comfort in a very difficult time. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you for being our inaugural Chamber Conversation guest. And I'm looking forward to having you back when we can talk about something that isn't quite so terrifying. But thanks again. We really appreciate you being with us today.
Thank you, Rick.
Thanks, Shabri.